everyone, welcome to episode 7 of BCG's Health Tech Videos. I am Ariel Rothman, and today's moderator is Supriya Jain, Managing Director and Partner at BCG. Today we will discuss the health tech investment landscape, and I'm excited to introduce our two panelists. Kris Ramadurai is a partner at Harmonix Fund, an early-stage venture capital fund. Mike Vaupen is a Managing Director at Vestar Capital Partners, a middle-market private equity firm. Thank you both so much for joining. I'll pass it off to Supriya now to begin the discussion.
Thank you, Ariel. Kris, Mike, great to have you. Very excited to have this conversation. We want to spend some time talking about just how you're thinking about investing in health tech, given the current environment. Things have obviously changed. Things are looking slightly different than what they looked 18 months, 24 months ago. And one of the key things that we are seeing with our clients and investments is this transition from a focus on growth to profitability. However, to build a profitable company, that takes time. So when you think about investing right now, what does a good investment look for you? Right from the number of companies you want to invest in, what the product looks like, what does the future vision look like? Kris, maybe we can get started with you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I know it's an interesting time to be alive in the venture space and middle market space right now. 3 full market swings and a bank collapse in 4 years. I think every manager's been through the gamut. But I think on the health tech side, I always like to say we invest in painkillers, not vitamins. So we're looking for scalable solutions that are actually solving critical bottlenecks and problems. So on the health tech side, I like to say we've automated everything that ends in ology. We've been quite keen on identifying scalable solutions that can actually be implemented frictionlessly into the actual customer's tech stack and solution. So healthcare, I know it's very difficult to vertically integrate. So a lot of our founding teams are repeat operators in the space, so they understand the BD cycles. But most importantly, I always like to talk to the customers and get that feedback that says, hey, we're dying for this to come out. When are you guys going to get this out the door? And I always say when you stub your toe, you're not taking vitamin C, you're taking Advil. And I like all of our companies in the health tech space to be that kind of solution for whether the patients, the payers, or the providers, or the institutions themselves, and ideally get super sticky and kind of like a piece of gum in the cog in the machinery where they can't separate them from their workflows. And then most importantly, tangible outputs. So, at the end of the day, physicians just want to go home earlier. They don't need another solution to add to their toolkit that's going to require them to do extra training. It takes 17 years to get Epic integrated. And with all the AI, ML stuff that's out there, we're really keen on these solutions being drop in, plug and play. And then, like you said, sustainable business enterprises. Revenue is your best friend, your customers are your best friends in this kind of market environment. And we've been very keen on making sure that the solutions are scalable within those institutions and that the key opinion leaders in the space actually promote endogenous integration and adoption of the solutions.
Mike, curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, happy to. And Kris is right. I mean, it's been an interesting market, I think, for all investors the last 18, 24 months. I think we've seen it probably through a slightly different lens than maybe where Kris has, but nonetheless, still a lot of the same macro themes and challenges. But at Vestar, we're later stage private equity investors, so we look to invest in terms of healthcare and differentiated tech and tech enabled solutions, which have already achieved some baseline level of scale. Not typically, we're always investing in proven business models that have existing market adoption, a growing and happy installed base of customers. But oftentimes, a lot of the investment opportunities we find are founder-led organizations, founder-owned companies that we're the first institutional capital partner to the company. And so I think a lot of what we're looking for and focus on are opportunities where we could invest behind a proven business model, strong founders or management teams, and through a combination of our capital, our resources, our network and relationships, really just help partner with that team and accelerate growth and kind of improve the trajectory of growth, but building off of a really solid foundation that's already in place.
I think that's exactly right. And when we kind of think about investments and what we are seeing with some of our clients, it's very similar themes. It is a lot about just trying to take a step back and understanding where are your real pain points and how do you kind of try solve it without completely reinventing the wheel if you don't have to. And I think, Kris, you mentioned about it being really sticky, and the Epic example is definitely spot on. Like, this is not a group typically that likes change, doesn't like having to learn new things every single day. So anything that you can put in that's good quality, that you keep evolving with time, I think that's something we've seen be pretty successful in this space. Excellent. All right. So moving on, when you think about healthcare tech, for me, while I've kind of spent time in this space, it used to be a lot of provider tech, like that's what people thought about it. Now what we are seeing is a lot more in payer tech as well as pharma tech. If you had to pick one area of the three to invest in, which would it be and why? And maybe Mike, we could start with you.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we spend time across all three areas, as you might expect, and there's opportunity in all three spaces. That said, in the current environment, we've been spending more time in pharma tech over the last year or so. I think given some of the pressures providers in particular have faced around staffing and labor challenges, just some of the other macro issues impacting some of those spaces. I think we found, just on a relative basis, the budgets within pharma being more open and receptive to technology solutions and outsourced services. Pharma is not immune to their own set of complexity and regulatory dynamics, but in many ways, I think that is helping to drive more adoption of technology. So that's been a space we've been spending more time in this current market environment.
Kris, here's for your thoughts with a slightly different lens from where you said.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly echo, Mike's comments. I think for two areas that, we've been particularly jazzed about has been pharma tech and provider tech. On the pharma tech side, we've been really keen on accelerating the design, test, build, learn cycle on preclinical and clinical stage drug development. As you know, it takes, over a decade and over $1 billion to bring a drug to market, clearly unsustainable. And it's a 9% attrition rate, for FDA approved asset. And what we realize is that you're not really democratizing access to treatments if, a life-saving cancer drug costs $3 million for a treatment protocol, right? And so, one of our companies developed the world's first fully end-to-end AI designed drug in clinical trials. And now we're able to go from preclinical drug target hit to clinical trials less than 18 months for under $2 million, where it would have taken, 5 to 7 years and, 100 times the cost. So, we've been really excited about using next-gen compute architectures to basically eliminate the trial and error in drug development and discovery, and then ultimately bring these treatments to market faster. And then when they do become available, we've been really excited on the provider tech of, the future of precision medicine and precision oncology, truly precision-based, where patients can actually get, matched to the right treatment that they would respond best to, reducing the cost structure behind cancer treatment, right? Because a lot of times it's trial and error when it comes to oncology treatments. And patients typically don't respond well to, just the standardized template of treatment protocol for cancer. So, we've been really keen on automating medical affairs analytics, pharmacovigilance, precision oncology, and areas like that, so that ultimately we can democratize access to these cutting edge therapies at scale. And it's a very complicated process, but we've been trying to find computationally enabled solutions in each one of these buckets that can accelerate this and ultimately, hopefully, make the next generation of cutting edge therapeutics actually truly accessible to everyone.
Yeah. And I think we are seeing something very, very similar with like provider tech or stuff that's been around for a while. The next gen, AI and then Gen AI, how do you kind of use that? How does that become part of the offering? And if you don't, the winners and the losers, you kind of start seeing the difference there. So I do think we are seeing very similar themes built across, provider, payer, as well as pharma, a lot more interest in pharma and payer, just kind of given some of the reasons you all just mentioned. All right, I'll move on to our last question, which I absolutely love. It's asking you guys to look into the crystal ball and think through, when we think about the current environment that has created a lot of opportunities for investors. do you think the next crop of your health tech unicorns are being established right now in the next year? And when you think about, the companies that you're looking at, and if they have the potential of being the next unicorn, what will they do to change the way healthcare operates to get that status? What is it about them that makes them special? Kris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say probably in 2 words, structured data. So I think one of the biggest issues in healthcare is, everybody says that they want to innovate in healthcare, and I kind of always roll my eyes because I was like, get in line, everybody's trying to do it. And one of the key bottlenecks has always been, we have this vast trove of data that's out there. And we have so many siloed solutions of companies trying to analyze that data disparately. But the problem is that there hasn't been a full stack provision yet to tag, label, and organize that data in a way that we can translate an output very quickly and effectively to the provider, the payer, or the patient, because there's kind of this Bermuda Triangle between the payer, provider, and patient. Nobody talks to each other. And then you have a lot of founding teams that are trying to solve very tiny solutions in that chain. So, a lot of our investments that we've been making in the space are, what are the next gen of full stack structured data procurement solutions out there in healthcare? And I think those are the ones that we are seeing the same thing with customers everywhere saying, we've got all this data. We don't really have time to scrub it, tag it, and get it to an output. And I think one of the biggest issues with the AI ML companies is that we have structured bias with the algorithms as well. So the companies that we've been investing in are taking a full stack approach to taking all this healthcare data, structuring it, tagging it, labeling it, and then making sure that the outputs are well validated and that we don't get hallucinations with the AI and ML where it's making up something. And most importantly, is still reaffirmed by the provider in that context of, okay, if it recommended this treatment, yes, the provider would actually recommend this treatment. And so that's kind of like what we see. So we've been doing structured data procurement and digital surgery, oncology, radiology, et cetera, dermatopathology. And we found all the customers saying, thank God, you can finally just get to the point with all of this data that we didn't really know what to do with. And then the patient is super jazzed because, they got an accelerated outcome. The provider's awesome, super stoked because it took an hour off his workload a day to do something or to get to the point. And then the payer's excited because we're optimizing a process that was totally redundant. So that's kind of what we've been excited about.
I'm not sure I'm the best position to guess the next unicorn, as we're generally not trying to make those sorts of investment bets. But I agree a lot of what Kris said, just around companies that are finding ways to leverage healthcare data in different ways. But I think the other area that we do think about, and I think is a place where a lot of innovative companies today are finding ways to create value is really those companies that are creating a compelling clinical outcome or a financial ROI, whether that's for payers, employers, or providers. We made an investment in a company late last year that is taking we think a unique value-based approach to managing sleep care as a total cost of care intervention strategy for self-insured employers. There's a clinical outcome associated with it. You're delivering better health, but also helping to drive lower cost of care for an employee population. So I think those sorts of companies, whether they're creating or enabling new care models, maybe addressing some of the workforce challenges from a productivity standpoint, I think companies that are have an actual ROI associated with what they're doing, I think will be successful in the long run and ultimately be kind of durable businesses.
I think that's absolutely fair, Mike. I think when we think about a successful company, definitely the ROI. I think the main ask is, can you show me proof of what you're telling me? And I think the proof of burden has increased, and rightly so. And Kris, to your point, there is this element of, can you just make it simple? I don't need to go through 7 hoops to kind of get to that one answer. Can you just kind of simplify it so that I don't have to spend 60 more minutes? And I think when you kind of just take a step back, you think about the burnout, the great resignation, and everything we've gone through. The more we can simplify lives, the more we kind of keep it simple, knowing, well, there's a lot more that goes in the back, but the user interface and what the user is actually seeing, the more you can simplify it and the more you can show that this actually works, I do think those are important elements of a winning formula. With that, thank you so much, Kris and Mike. Really appreciate the insights and appreciate you taking time to speak with us.